I came up with this or recognized this when way back many a moon ago when I was on the Oprah show. And Oprah came backstage afterwards with her two producers, and they were like, "We're having you on again." And anybody knows what that could mean to your career, right? And for 2 years, they tortured me. Like for 2 years, they'd call and be like, "Okay, we have a segment we think we want you to do. Oh, never mind, that's not going to work out. Oh, okay, let's design something." And okay, it never worked out. Oh my gosh. And my life became about like, am I going to be on Oprah and be a millionaire already? Come on. And I totally lost sight of my purpose. And I started to suffer
Oh,
because
wow.
everything was contingent on this goal. And I realized, wait a minute, what is my purpose? And I identify my purpose as like, just because I am energy that causes change. Like you will not get in a room with me and not change something in your life, even if it's just your haircut. And that's just an annoying trait about me, but it's always been there. People change things when they're around me. And I recognized that I was off purpose. Like just pursuing the goal made me lose so many days where I wasn't helping somebody change something. I wasn't energy that was causing change. So I had to get back to that and just say, forget the rest of it. And if it was meant to be, it would be. And it wasn't meant to be, obviously. But that's how we get back on track with our lives. Sometimes we not getting our goal takes you completely off track from living your purpose.
Welcome to the Good Life Coach podcast. I am your host, Michelle Lamoureux. The intention of this show is to awaken you to your fullest potential. Join me each week for inspiring interviews to elevate an area of your life, as well as interviews with women entrepreneurs who are creating success on their own terms. Each episode provides actionable tips to guide you to design a life you love. Hey there, it's Michelle Lamoureux, and welcome back to the Good Life Coach podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about career transitions. If you've pulled yourself out of the world of work or have been thinking about re-engaging or are self-employed or work for a company but are feeling called to move in a different direction, then today's show is for you. Joining us is Laura Berman Fortgang, who is an OG in the personal coaching field. She's also the best-selling author of 5 books, a sought-after speaker, TV personalities, been on Oprah and all the national morning shows. She's an interfaith minister and performer, and her TEDx talk has nearly 2 million views. She's addressed audiences around the world on topics such as reinvention, career satisfaction, and small businesses. She's known for her unique career clarity, Now What methodology, and her A-list coach business mentoring program. And I'm so happy because she's been the guest on the show and was so fabulous that she is back. Welcome, Laura.
Yeah, get round 2. I'm so
Round
honored.
2. I actually replayed your first interview a couple times, like around like the new year, when I feel like people need to be doing some deep thinking. I'm like, I'm just going to rerun Laura's interview because we did talk about your book, Now What, and transitions and listening to your intuition. And I'll link it in the show notes because it was really such a deep and good conversation. I know people loved it.
Thank you.
Yeah, but a theme that keeps coming up is this idea of like, I like my life, but I'm kind of taking a look at it. And I keep, we talk a lot about those inner whispers, intuition, those voices calling to you. And, some people just want to get re-engaged in the world of work and others really want to shake things up. So let's begin with women who've been out of the work world for a while, then they could have been the lawyers, whatever, the teachers, whatever they were doing, and then just pulled themselves out completely. And now they want to re-engage. Where do they even begin?
Well, most of them worry about, oh, my resume is so out of date. People are going to ask me about the gap in my resume. What am I going to do? And before we even address that, like the truth is, in my observation, in my experience, most people don't want to go back to the thing they did before. So why are you so worried about the
That's
resume?
interesting.
Because, most people don't necessarily want to go back to the same thing. Then the challenge becomes, all right, so I need to say what this gap was about. You're always honest. It's okay. Everybody does it. It's not as big of a deal as it was, I don't know, 15 years ago. This is not a big deal. Everybody, look at the pandemic caused so many people to take a break or whatever. It's become part of the the routine. So don't worry about the gap. But the thing is like, all right, so I was a lawyer, but I don't want to be a lawyer. So how am I going to get into that new thing? And that becomes, the tougher challenge of how do I transition to something new? And there are lots of ways. I just work with somebody on their resume and it's like, okay, what did you do as a lawyer per se that can now be parlayed into something else, right? So the writing skills, or maybe you were a partner and you were into marketing the firm. So you have marketing experience. So it's looking at whatever that thing might be next and looking for everything that you did in the past that might have an aspect of that. And you change your messaging, so to speak, to put people's attention on how, even though you didn't do the exact job, you've done the pieces of the job. And those that may have nothing to point to, then we want to look at your volunteer opportunities. When I was band president, I switched them in, the band booster mom president, right? I had my business, but if I didn't have my business and I had to make a case for why I'm employable, I took a band that had 25 fundraisers and a pack of papers 15 inches thick for the parents, brought it down to 4 events that made us more money than 25 little fundraisers, turned us into a 501(c), a non-for-profit, and we were profitable. We had less events to do. We had less mess to contend with, right? So how do I break that down into a bunch of skills that can be used in any job? So don't dismiss anything that you've done. It's about your messaging and how you show people that you've done the pieces of the job, even though you haven't done the job. Does that make sense?
Yes, it totally does. I'd love to deep dive into the messaging a bit, but let's just take a step back. Let's say it's somebody, okay, so they know what they did. You're right. They don't want to do what they used to do or whatever.
Most people don't.
Most people don't. Yeah. That's probably why they didn't stick with it. Maybe
right. That's why they left in the first
they're
place.
like, oh, it's easy to leave because I don't really want to do this anymore anyway. Or that's not going to be the case in every situation. They may have actually enjoyed it, and some may be able to go back, which we can help them figure out the gap. But what if they're just feeling like I have no clue? Like I know I want to have something of my own, but I really don't know what that is.
Right.
How do they navigate?
Well, that's looking at, what was it about the things that you've done before that you do like? And one of my mottos is that it's not what you do that's going to make you happy, it's who your job allows you to be. So look at it less about what do I want to do and look at it more like who do I want to be? How do I want to be spending my time? What's the interaction I want with other people? And from there, your choices are different than if you just started looking for, what am I going to do? Am I going to be an executive assistant? And am I going to be a marketer? And am I going to be a writer? I call those the packages. You want to look inside that package, right? A writer uses their creativity. A writer has something different to do every day. All right, so you may not qualify to work for the New York Times, but you could find something that allows you to be creative every day and to have variety every day. You see what I'm saying? So we're taking it off of those resume titles and putting it more into, well, how do you want to spend your time? How do you want to use your precious energy? How do you want to impact people? How do you want to collaborate? And from there, we put the packages around it, right? Then we start naming, well, what could I do where I could be more creative? What could I do? I have somebody who's was a pharma executive who's now thinking about all the different ways they could be more creative. They've thought of having their own marketing firm. They've thought of having their own research firm that does, polls and whatever. Doing real estate house flipping because they've done that once successfully, right? So looking at all the ways that you can spend your time doing the things that you are lit up by. And maybe it doesn't have a job description that you're going to find on LinkedIn and a job, and you make up your own. Everybody's working for themselves these days. It's never been more popular.
That's true.
And, think like, what can I charge $100 an hour for? And get on it.
Yeah, get on it. Okay. But I think so confidence becomes a huge hit that women take. It's just this like,
and the imposter syndrome.
So a combination. So let's tackle that because that's big.
Yeah. If you've done it once, you've done it 100 times. And that that takes you convincing yourself that that is possible and that is true. And, think back to your former work, or, if you didn't work ever, think back of yourself as a student or yourself as a leader in some kind of organization, or you as a church member. How do you contribute? And if you've done it once, you've done it 100 times. So you build off of that. And important too is to have models, meaning not fashion models or swimsuit models, but
that's not going to help the confidence at all.
No,
Laura.
exactly. People that you can emulate.
Yeah.
And have those informational interviews. There's someone on your block who has their own business and you wonder, how do they do it? I never even see them outside. So ask them to coffee, or ask them if they'll give you 15 minutes on the phone and say, how do you fill your days? What does that look like? How do you find clients? Join a local networking group and get an idea of how people are doing it. Because knowledge is power. Once you see that someone else can do it, you get more ideas on how you can do it.
Absolutely. It's interesting. A woman reached out that I knew just from the neighborhood, and she asked to meet for coffee, which I happily did. And she was like doing the 50 coffee date kind of idea, where she has a sense of where she's going, but was kind of trying to fine tune, like, do I need the certification in health coaching, or can I just do it based on this experience? And some of that, I think, so let's talk about this piece, because I think a lot of it's an inside job, and sometimes knowledge is power, and too many opinions can be
too much. Yeah.
Yes, can stop you, like confuse you.
Sometimes too many opinions, especially if they conflict, make you question yourself.
Correct.
But, you brought up a great example though, like, do I need a certification, or do I have enough experience doing what I do? And that it really comes down to, your confidence. But at the same time, if you're going for a certification in something, you don't have to wait until that 2-year program is over to get started with what you're doing. Physical therapy colleges or everything has internships. So consider your own business like you hired yourself in your own internship while you're studying, and you're honest with people. You're going to be one of my first clients, so I'm giving you a discount, and you're going to help me learn. And people are willing to do that, right? People go and get their hair done by the apprentices for free to try out hair color, and you're taking a chance with your life.
That's funny.
But, look, I went into coaching with all in, both feet in. Had I ever coached anybody? No. Had I ever been like a mentor or a business advisor to anybody? No. But what I did notice was everybody asked me how I did X, Y, or Z. Right. I used to work at a restaurant as a waitress because I was an actress, and the ESS things go together, right? Actress, waitress. And somehow everyone asked me, like, how do I get my ties into Barney's New York? How do I get my music in the hands of a producer? How do I get my restaurant off the ground? And, I was like, why me? But somehow people saw that I could see the forest through the trees for my own goals.
Yes.
So I helped them see the forest through the trees on their goals. And lo and behold, it became part of my career, but that's just following what's in front of you sometimes. And that's where you gain the confidence, is by doing.
I think you just highlighted an important point, which is pay attention to what people come back to you for. What are they asking you about? What do they admire that you're able to do? Is that something you enjoy and lights you up, or you only like doing it for yourself, right? There's all these clues that can help direct the path. Yes.
Sounds like you read Now What. That's one of the things I say in Now What is like, what do other people say about you? Not that you're going to run and do it, but it is a reflection of how you impact people. If they go, God, you should be a teacher. You may not want to be a teacher in a classroom with high school kids, but what they're saying is you dispel information, you bring it down to a basic level where I can understand it. You explain it to me well. That can be put into many different things.
Absolutely.
You listen to those clues as to what people say about you or what they seek you out for. They are valuable.
Absolutely. Okay. I love that. Now I'm going to transition. So for women who are at home, start thinking about what Laura just talked about, and how to build that confidence, and just start. I always feel like just start. You'll get information as you're on the path. But if you're just sitting in the room, just thinking about stuff, then you're just spinning in circles and you're not going to get any traction. You had written something on LinkedIn in a newsletter that I loved, and this is actually what prompted me to reach out to you. So I'm just going to read this. The heading of the newsletter was either or thinking, keeping you stuck? Question mark. When people come to me because they want to make a change in their career or business, among their top stumbling blocks in their path is indecision. They know they want to do something different, but they can't seem to decide what that different thing will be. Here's how this might go. Maybe you can relate. You write them. I don't want to be an accountant anymore. I think I'd like to be a writer, but I'm also considering starting a floral design business. I just can't decide. You say, why not start a floral design business and use your writing skills to tell your story and market your business, or become a writer and do beautiful floral designs for your retreats and book signings. So take us into this, because this something prompted you to write this particular newsletter.
Yeah, I mean, I run into so many people who shop it down into either or decisions.
Yeah.
And they're not an either or. It's not black or white. There can be room for all of it. You know, you could be the CPA who sends floral arrangements with your taxes. You will never be forgotten. You know, here's your tax return and some flowers to make you feel better about how much you owe. Right.
And I included the cost for those flowers in your bill. No, I'm kidding.
It's hidden in your bill.
Yeah, you don't know
it.
that. That's right. You don't know it, but the cost of the flowers have been built into this year's tax returns. Yeah.
So it's rarely an either or decision. And it came from a client once who said to me, I don't know if I want to be a writer or have my own business. And I said, wait a minute. If you're a writer, you are in your own business. Your writing is your product. You're selling it. You're trying to have a contract given to you for it. You're going to have to market it. You're going to have to be out in the world with it. That is your own business. So we sometimes we conflate them, we collapse it into each other and think that they are, or it's the other way around. We separate them and think it's an either or when they really can be co-joined and go together in some way.
Yeah.
So catch yourself, and if you're in a big either or chopping things up into little pieces, see where the connections are, and can they be mixed together, or do they all point to creativity in some way? And as long as that's included, you're going to feel like your life juice the faucet is on to your life juice.
Okay. And this is kind of what you were saying initially, which is it's not the role so much as what the aspects of what it needs to be like. So like you said, going in deeper. So how do we kind of pare that down more? Because not everyone has your ability to see that so clearly. Like you said, that's why you do what you do, Laura.
And right. And I think everyone can do it.
Right. True. So let us get into your, share how your brain would process the situation.
My brain is peeling away the layers of the onion and saying, so what happens if you have that? What's possible if you have that? What's possible if you have that? And I keep peeling the layers away. And it gets down to when people say they want to have, they want to be happier, right? And you'll be happier when you're doing more of the things that you enjoy, but it's more than that. Where meaning comes in is when what you do impacts others in small or big ways, because none of us has a purpose alone in a vacuum. Like if you close the closet door and you hide in there, you have no purpose other than to keep the moths company. So, your purpose is the ripple effect you have by the smile you give it to the grocery clerk, to the way you held the door for an older person on the way in. You don't know the ripple effect that those things have. So you only have a ripple effect in conjunction with other people. So when we're looking at, these job descriptions or the things that we think would make us feel a certain way, it's going to be even more powerful if it impacts others. So I always ask people, okay, so if you're rich and famous, because that's your dream, then what's possible for somebody else? What do you cause? Well, then I can be generous and give money to a cause that I care about. Great. And then you giving money to that cause, what's possible because of that? I could affect a cure. And what's possible because of that? I can actually help people. So helping people is what's important to you. So how do we bring that into today and not make it be contingent on you being rich and famous? And that's how I peel away the onion to bring it to something that we can activate today. It has no expiration date and it has nothing dependent upon it to have it happen.
Okay.
And when I came up with this or recognized this when way back many a moon ago when I was on the Oprah show. And Oprah came backstage afterwards with her two producers, and they were like, "We're having you on again." Do you know? And anybody knows what that could mean to your career, right? And for 2 years, they tortured me. Like for 2 years, they'd call and be like, "Okay, we have a segment we think we want you to do. Oh, never mind, that's not going to work out. Oh, okay, let's design something." And okay, it never worked out. Oh my gosh! And my life became about like, "How am I going to be on Oprah and be a millionaire already? Come on!" And I totally lost sight of my purpose, and I started to suffer
Oh,
because
wow.
everything was contingent on this goal. And I realized, wait a minute, what is my purpose? And I identify my purpose as like, just because I am energy that causes change. Like you will not get in a room with me and not change something in your life, even if it's just your haircut. And that's just an annoying trait about me, but it's always been there. People change things when they're around me. And I recognized that I was off purpose. Like just pursuing the goal made me lose so many days where I wasn't helping somebody change something. I wasn't energy that was causing change. So I had to get back to that and just say, forget the rest of it. And if it was meant to be, it would be. And it wasn't meant to be, obviously. Um, but that's how we get back on track with our lives. Sometimes we not getting our goal takes you completely off track from living your purpose.
Wow. That's a great example.
That's a big example.
Yeah,
I had to
that's a
learn
big
that lesson
one.
the hard way.
Oh, I can imagine you were waiting for that call or getting it and then being like, no, no, we can make this work. We can do this segment. Yeah.
No,
Trying to
no,
convince
no,
them.
we can
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's right. Okay. Well, let's give maybe an exercise. So like, let's just say, I'm just trying to think if I'll use, I don't know if I want to use myself or not. I'll have to think about this. I'm like, But if somebody were to sit down with a pen and paper and they're like going to peel back the layers like you talked about. So let's look at the example you use in what I read with the accountant who wants to be a writer and a florist.
Right.
So are they kind of putting down like a list of, okay, here are the bigger ideas, right? Or sort of the career paths. And then going in and breaking down, well, what is it about the writing? What is it about being the florist? I mean, again, the common link
Right. So
there is
what's possible?
creativity.
The question that I always ask is what's possible for others because you're a florist? Or what's
Uh,
possible for others because you're a CPA? Or what's possible for others because you're a writer? Right. So I can help people transcend their reality, or I can help bring beauty to their life. And we keep unpacking that until maybe we find a place where all three of these cross over.
hmm,
Or maybe we just realize you know, we're going to have to make a choice at some point, or maybe they, like we said, we can have the writing CPA who sends flowers. And
right.
not everything's meant to be your career, folks. I crochet. You know how much I'd have to charge for a crocheted blanket in order to make it worth my time and the materials? And like, I'd have to charge $600. So it's not practical to make crochet my living. It's something I enjoy, right? So also understanding the difference between what needs to be a hobby and what needs to be your work.
Okay. And you
And I
figure
think
that
people
out
get
by,
I mean, when it comes to, if you ever go to an art fair, some of the nicer ones that come through your park, and you're
yeah.
like, oh my God, that painting is $400. Well, yeah, it's $400. Like what's that song that was a trending song on? Anyway, it has the F word in it, so I won't use it. But there's a
We
trending
can bleep it.
song on
Yeah.
on Instagram that artists use, like, yeah, it costs this much because look at how much time it takes me to do it. But wait a minute, I got off point. So how do you decide if it's a hobby or not a hobby? First of all, can you afford to have your hobby be your work? Maybe you can. Maybe you're in a partnership where whatever you make is bonus money. So you and your partner are like, I'll have the job, you do the art. That's cool. Wonderful. You've got an ideal scenario.
Yes.
I know someone who does their art, doesn't quite make it monthly, but does their art and they're committed to that lifestyle, right? So you have to really look at your hobbies as like, can I live the lifestyle of my hobby?
Say that again. That's profound. That's important. Can I live
The lifestyle
of my
of my
hobby?
hobby, or what my hobby allows as my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
I was an actor. I wanted that to be my career. At 30 years old, after 8 years professionally, I was like, I don't want this to be my lifestyle anymore. I'm not willing to take the risk.
Yeah.
So it became a hobby,
Yeah. Yeah. I
but
think
I'd have
somebody
no
can understand that.
regrets.
Right.
because I gave it, I gave it my all.
Right. And I think that's an important piece too, is just don't have those regrets if you can at least try if it is something that's going to serve
If it's
others,
gonna- right.
right?
Or if it's going to haunt you, like my thing was when I graduated college,
yeah,
I didn't want to be 35, stuck in a great job with a house and kids and not be able to try. So I thought, let me try, go for the dream. And if at some point I don't want to do that anymore, I'll do something else. And I did.
well, was it, so you have an interfaith minister. Where does your sort of spiritual belief system play into this? I'm just curious, and this is personal, so feel free to say, I don't want to talk about this.
Well, I became an interfaith minister shortly, 5 years after 9/11, but mostly because I felt like people didn't understand each other. And a lot of it was, we were afraid of Islam at the time. And I was like, you don't understand what Islam is. It's a peace loving religion. There's extremists in every religion. So that was my motivation for learning other things.
Yes.
And also that came out of my clients all wanting to do something more meaningful with their life. And I was like, what would be more meaningful than what I'm doing? Religion and hitting people at an even deeper level of their spiritual understanding.
Yeah.
And in the end, I was like, not going to work in a church full time for $30,000 a year. So that was the end of it being a career. But I wrote a book based on the experience, which was, brought me great, I won't say great fortune, but great pleasure and great opportunity. And my spiritual beliefs were just my main spiritual belief has nothing to do with God or any creator being, is that there's two thoughts in the world, fear or love. And every time I've had a career reiteration, it's because I chose love instead of fear. How many times are we afraid to try something or afraid to go for it or afraid to put that resume out or afraid to ask somebody for help? So I even got love tattooed on my wrist last month. Can you see it?
I can see it.
To remind me to make that choice every day. Love over fear.
Wow. All right. Well, that's awesome. I love that you shared that. Somebody had asked, about this concept of like, let's say they are successful. So we talked about re-entering, we talked about doing the pivot, transitioning. What if you are in something that you love? This person's curious about, a meaningful retirement with some aspect of work and then pursuing the new stuff too. And, it's sort of what a pseudo retirement, I take that question as, like, what would that look like?
I love that question because I really think that the way that we stay, I'm not even going to say young, but the way that we stay engaged with the world and don't have old age affect us is to stay active and to keep learning. So I really would like to see retirement become a word of the past, because who retires? Really, even if you're independently wealthy, you're traveling or you're doing something else. I don't think we should call it retirement anymore. I think we should just, and plus
I've never aspired to that.
No, to sit in my
Sounds
lawn.
boring. No. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So people, we live longer and longer and better. And so a meaningful retirement, if we have to call it that, means you worked in your field. Maybe you're really okay and don't have to make money, but you choose to. Yes. And you choose something that really is going to be meaningful for you. And I explain what meaningful means. Meaningful means that you've affected others. It's never an exercise of your own. Even if you paint alone in a room, you still want people to see your painting, or you want people to try to sit there and figure out, like, what does that dot on that blank canvas mean? You want to affect people and you want to impact them. So meaning comes from connection to self, connection to source, connection to whatever your activity is, and then connection to how it impacts others. So as this person is thinking about what would be more meaningful, it's twofold. Think of something from the past that you may have not gotten a chance to do. That may be the meaningful next step. Or think of your skill set, like the thing from the past mixed with your skill set of today and all those resume features, and how might that really serve some higher purpose? right? So maybe I don't know, we keep going to attorney, but let's say you were an attorney and you were a powerhouse attorney. Now you don't have to be a powerhouse attorney anymore, but you could lend your attorneyhood to a nonprofit that's trying to save the planet, or a nonprofit that's trying to save the animals, or whatever works for you, right? So it's you bringing everything you've done and bringing it to someplace that needs it. That doesn't matter how much they can pay you. That's fun, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Someone also was asking, what if you need to make money, need, so I'm going to highlight the word make money to support the family, but you've invested time and energy into the what feels more purpose aligned or soul aligned. How do you reconcile those two things so that your soul doesn't get depleted? Like, I wonder,
I
is there a
know.
way to take whatever the meaningful thing is and sort of make some money, somehow align those? I don't know. I'd love just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive. They're just harder to come by.
Yeah.
But I'm reminded of one client that I work with who'd always been very philanthropic, even in her young age, when she was young as a kid, like, doing the McDonald's carnival in her backyard, or, creating greeting cards to raise money for something. And so here she was, a full blown adult who could not afford to work for a nonprofit, and discovered that the bank that they worked for had a nonprofit division,
Mm,
and she made bank salary to run a nonprofit.
got it.
So that's an incredible thing. And I think there's got to be other solutions like that out there. So how do you take, what you can contribute, make money at it, and have it affect something that matters to you? I'm working with a young woman right now in Dubai who has a heavy duty finance background and now wants to bring it to something that can save the planet
Oh,
or environmental. And, it might mean a little less money, but there's other ways that, not every nonprofit is poor. Let me just say that too.
that's true. No, that's
Yeah.
true. Could be a well-funded nonprofit, depending
Right.
on.
And they have in their budget executive director salary and this salary and that salary. So it's not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I guess I'm thinking though, so I'm thinking of one person in mind who's a friend who was saying like she feels like she's going backwards a bit, but she needs and so like I can tell it's not aligned for her, but at the same time it's necessary. So do you kind of take the detour, or does that do
You
more
know,
harm than good? You know what I mean? Like it's hard to say without being more specific.
well, no one likes to feel like they're going backwards, but at the same time, if you're going backwards to go forwards, then it's just a temporary hit to your ego that you have to take. Or if you're going backwards, but you know why you have to go backwards, and that's a worthy reason, then that's what you have to do.
Yeah. And that's how you frame it so that you can feel good about the choice and know that nothing is it's
Right.
permanent, right? Like
Right. You
the
know,
point of change is in every moment. You could just be like, well, that was not the right choice. We'll find something else that's a little bit more soul infusing
and
to pay the
also
bills.
sometimes you don't know how something is a stepping stone to that thing you really do want. Do you know what I mean? Like, you might get
Yes.
into this less than ideal scenario, as long as you're not, causing yourself harm. And you're like, oh, gosh, it's a good thing I was there, because that's why I met this person that led to that thing, or that's why I learned about this type of work that now led to the next thing. So you really just don't know.
It's true.
Um,
Or if they're
you,
single, you might meet the person that you're going to be with, but not
there
the
you
job
go.
you hate, right? Or you meet your new best friend, right?
Right.
The
Right.
relationships become the bonus and the job
Right. So
wasn't
you
the
go
thing.
into it with that mentality of, what's the wonder around the corner that I
Love
can't
that.
see, you know?
I love that. Um, Anything I didn't ask that you're like, I really want to leave everyone listening with today in terms of this whole idea of transitions, sense of
You know,
joy? Yeah.
I mean, I want people to remember it's not what you do for a living, it's who you get to be while you're doing it that will make the difference to you.
Yeah.
But also, as we as adults look at this, my heart hurts for our 17-year-olds who we're asking to figure out the rest of their life as they end high school and college. And everything we said today, think about that with your kids too. It's not like, oh, what job can you make a living at that? You can be whatever you want until they are going to go to college. And you say, well, how are you going to make a living at that? You've got to break it down, right? So it may not be that they're going to be an astronaut, but what is it about being an astronaut? The wonder, the fascination, the research, the math equations, what is it? And that's what you want to help them pursue. So again, peeling back the onion. And I don't know, it just seems important to me to say that while we're thinking about it for our adult selves, to not forget that our kids or our grandkids or whoever's around us is looking at us too. And they need models. We still use the paper roadmap in high schools of like, what are you good at? And what are you getting good grades in? And what do you like to do? And no, we all operate with GPS now. You don't have a paper map in your car. So why do we keep perpetuating the myth? It's not just what you're good at. Let's ask, who are you? What do you care about? What do you want to impact? And let's make the decisions from there. So there's my soapbox.
Oh, I love that. I love those last 3 questions because we're going to think about that too. And I think you're right about the whole modeling and taking the pressure off and also approaching it with some curiosity, knowing, just like we said, none of it's permanent. Just go along for the journey and you can figure out when it's time to detour. But you got to try, right? You got to get out there, have the conversations, start peeling back the layers and take some action, right?
And watch out for old, outdated vows. Like sometimes we have an old vow, we didn't get to this, but an old vow that we made before we were 20 years old, where we're like, I'll never do this, or I'll never do that, or I won't be like this person, or that teacher who said I was stupid, I'll show them. Believe me, you have proved anybody else wrong a million times over. And that's not the place to make this adult, mature decision from if you're midlife or mid-career or thinking about retirement. It's got to be from a new source of motivation. So we got to figure out what that is.
Love it. And I know you have a freebie, I believe, on your website that we're going to direct people to. It's a quick guide to clarity, which is really what we're talking about, getting clear. Where do people find you, Laura, and where can they access that?
If you go to nowwhatcoaching.com, you'll find right on the homepage, get our quick clarity guide. It'll also be in the show notes here. And it's a 5-step guide to help you get clear. And it's not a total repeat of everything we've talked about today. Some new thoughts in there too.
Perfect. And you can picture Laura's grounding voice taking you through this journey.
It's funny. I only speak grounding voice in NPR when I have headset on.
It's because you're wearing the headset today.
It is.
You wear a headset today, Laura.
I think when I don't have the headset on, I'm much louder. But when I have the headset on, I feel like
it's very funny. I saw that your energy because the first time it was we had mic issues, so that's why Laura's wearing her headset today. All of the show notes for today will be over at thegoodlifecoach.com. As Laura mentioned, her resource guide will be there. A link to her website if you want to reach out and say hello. Her social media handles, but if you know somebody who's in transition and you're thinking of that person while you're listening, take a second right now to share this. And also, I think what is a nice, generous gesture too is leave a rating review if you get some value from Laura, and I will pass that along. I'm thinking because it's nice. It's the only way I'd be able to say, hey, Laura, I've done this with other guests. I'm like, oh, Geraldine, look, you got 3 reviews on your whatever. This has been
people
happening.
Liked it.
Yeah, so you don't even have to just rate the show, rate the guest, and I'll share it with Laura. Thank you for being here today. I always love connecting with you. And next time we'll do it without the headset, so you can be your wild and crazy self. But thank you so much. It's good to practice my NPR voice. Yes, I do like it. It grounded me today. Yes, so thank you. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope you gained some new information or inspiration for your life. That is the essence of this show, is to really wake up to what's possible for you, to reclaim your beautiful voice, and to really learn to love and prioritize yourself. So if you gained any value from any of the conversations you've tuned into, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player. You can do that right now on your phone. And please do consider leaving a rating and review if you have yet to do so on Apple Podcasts. It's actually how more women can find the show. And I really want to grow a community of women who are loving themselves and living full on. So thank you as always for tuning in. And I look forward to reconnecting with you next Wednesday. Bye for now.